Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Look, if you've been feeling lately like your mind is just constantly racing, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're going to explore how to actually find a quiet center in a modern world that, frankly, simply never stops shouting at us. We'll be looking into modern exhaustion, the real nature of grace, and this foundational concept known as the inner chamber.
So, you might be wondering, why does finding genuine quiet in today's world feel so impossible? Let's start by validating a very real exhaustion you're probably feeling. There's this massive central paradox to our era, right? We are desperate for peace, yet we live in an environment that literally actively works against it. You sit down for just a single moment of stillness, only to find your mind immediately jumping across surfaces, running calculations, anticipating the next demand. And I want to be clear, that isn't just you having a bad day. It's the direct result of living inside a very specific kind of cultural noise.
That brings us to our first main area, Section 1, the architecture of noise and the relentless clamor of our era.
To really understand the cure here, we first have to understand the environment we're operating in. We're dealing with an architecture that makes genuine quiet genuinely difficult. I mean, between the constant pinging of devices, overflowing inboxes, and that endless doom scroll of ambient stimulation, practically every single surface in modern life offers another entry point for a demand on your time. Silence has basically been taken over by this assumption that it absolutely must be filled with productivity. And honestly, that completely starves the soul of genuine rest.
And here is where it gets tricky. This relentless external noise creates what the source calls a secondary uproar. It's that residual internal agitation that keeps your gears turning long after you finally silence your devices. Our minds have literally been trained to be constantly available, responsive, and on high alert all the time. It's this persistent hum, to the point where alertness and anxiety have become so deeply intertwined, it's kind of difficult to even tell them apart anymore. So, if you are struggling to find peace right now, just take a deep breath and realize this. The difficulty of finding stillness in a world that does not offer it freely is not a spiritual failure. It is a human reality. Seriously, let that sink in. It is not a personal flaw. It's not a lack of discipline on your part. It is simply the friction of a soul trying to find depth in a world that is completely obsessed with the surface.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, recognizing the quiet whisper and hearing beyond the agitation. If we deliberately peel our focus inward, we find a stark contrast between two very different internal voices. On one hand, you have the voice of the ego. This one is loud, it's accusatory, and it's highly transactional. It's that voice eagerly bringing up your entire history of mistakes and basically keeping you bracing for impact. But then, on the other hand, there's the divine whisper. This presence is gentle, non-judgmental, and opening. Notice that it doesn't amplify itself to compete with the ego's noise. It just remains totally steady.
And what's fascinating is that true inner clarity isn't just some abstract, floating thought. Your body actually physically recognizes it. It produces a literal sense of opening and spaciousness. You might feel a sudden release in your chest or your shoulders, a natural deepening of the breath, or an expanding inward field of vision. It literally settles your agitation without needing a single new external fact to justify that peace. How incredible is that?
To put it into a great visual, this quiet whisper moves the way a current moves beneath the surface of a river. It's completely invisible from the bank, but unmistakable once you're in the water. It flows steadily beneath all that surface turbulence of our distracted, anxious minds. It is continuous, even when you can't immediately hear it over the roar of a busy day.
Now let's look at Section 3, Grace and Spiritual Depletion, Navigating the Filter of Exhaustion.
This brings us to a very specific kind of weariness, the kind of bone-deep tired that simply cannot be fixed by an 8-hour nap. Spiritual depletion is that state where practices that used to nourish you suddenly just feel like heavy obligations. It's when everyday beauty barely even registers anymore. Listen, you aren't broken. You just have a clogged internal filter, so you're receiving the world through this heavy screen of sustained weariness.
The problem is, we usually try to fix this exhaustion in entirely the wrong way. When we attempt to earn grace, motivated by seeking a reward, the result is just more exhaustion from constant striving. And when we try to manage it out of a fear of losing it, well, we get the exhaustion of constant bracing. But when we finally shift to actually receiving it, just simply accepting it as a gift, the result is an unconditional, totally unearned release.
Think of it this way. Grace is like light on a cloudy day. It is present beyond the clouds, even when those clouds are literally all you can see. It enters directly through our filter of exhaustion. It absolutely does not demand that you perfectly compose yourself or, fix your messy conditions before it draws close to you.
Which leads perfectly into Section 4, surrendering the need to control and releasing the weight.
Because there really is a threshold where more overthinking simply produces more anxiety, not clarity. So to reorient yourself during a chaotic moment, the source suggests trying a deliberate pause. It's highly practical. Step 1. Notice the surface agitation, like say when you're drafting a frantic, overthought reply to an email. Step 2. Take a breath and briefly just drop below that surface level. And step 3, instead of asking, "What do I need to do?" ask the open question, "What is actually true right now?" This completely short-circuits the anxious mind's endless scenario generation.
When you make that deliberate pause a habit, something amazing happens. You begin operating from your center rather than the reactive surface. Because your compass is now internal, you rely far less on external validation for your stability. You can actually hear correction without feeling completely devastated. You can navigate disagreements without this massive existential alarm going off. And, maybe best of all, you can finally listen to others fully without just mentally rehearsing what you're going to say next.
And that brings us to our final part. Section 5, returning to the inner chamber and inhabiting the silence.
Picture the inner chamber as this specific, inward space of quiet that remains totally unchanged regardless of whatever external demands are flying at you. It is a foundational space deep inside you. You don't have to earn access to it. It requires absolutely no spiritual performance, no perfect emotional state, and no achievement to enter. You belong there simply by virtue of how you were made.
And when you spend time in that chamber, well, it creates a profound ripple effect. One single person anchored in stillness subtly changes the energy of whatever room they walk into. They offer more complete, genuinely interested attention. They remove hidden agendas from their listening. Most importantly, without saying a single word, they naturally gift peace to others, making the people around them feel genuinely safe to be honestly themselves. It's a real game changer. The source captures it beautifully with this thought. This inner chamber is love holding the lamp steady in the window, calling you back from whatever distance the clamor of the world has taken you. It is the absolute assurance that no matter how distracted you get, you are always expected, and you are always, always welcome back to your quiet center. So knowing that this quiet space already exists within you, totally untouched by the noise of the modern world, will you stop performing the frantic search and start inhabiting the silence? Think about that as you move back into the ordinary texture of your day. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope you find that quiet center whenever you need it.